and welcome to the Self Project Podcast. I'm your host, Christy Martin, and this podcast is all about the many different topics that we can experience as moms and as women, and the many different things that can affect us, or the many ways that we can heal as we're all moving along on our own personal growth journeys. And one of the things that I personally love to share and teach more about is emotional regulation. I know as a mom to 5 kids myself, there were so many times in my journey, especially being a younger mother, that I just could not handle or control my own emotions, let alone the big emotions that were coming from them as well, right? It could feel impossible sometimes not for me just to impulsively react or to yell, to just lose my shiz on them. And so throughout my years of parenting some of my high needs kids, I have really learned to hold space while I'm navigating these emotions and also managing our own triggers and things that are coming up for us. And so I really want to bring that to you because this is really important. So we're going to be having a Managing Triggers and Emotions workshop, and I'm going to be talking about how to identify the big emotions, how to navigate the emotional outbursts, building emotional resilience, and how to use human design. Okay, we're going to be talking more about the emotional solar plexus and the different emotional waves that the defined solar plexus can experience. So if you are at all interested in that, the link is down in the show notes, or you can visit www.theselfprojectstudio.com/workshops. So I hope to see you there. And now let's go ahead and dive into our latest episode. Welcome back to the show today, and I am really excited to be able to welcome on Lisa Brumm. And Lisa is the CEO and founder of My Financial Girlfriend, and I am just so thankful that Lisa, that you could take time to be here today to share more with us, because what Lisa's going to talk about today is so important. She's going to talk to us just more about finances and money and all of these things that we kind of learn about, but then, like you said, we drop into the adult world and it's like, what are we really doing? I have this checking account. What now? So Lisa, again, thank you for being here today. If you didn't mind, will you just give us kind of an introduction to yourself? Who are you, and what was it that really brought you around to wanting to create this for other people?
Yeah, absolutely. Hi. Well, thanks again, Christy. I really appreciate your time today. Lisa Brumm. I'm born and raised in Portland, Oregon. And what brought me to it was kind of a cry in my inner gut, a calling, if you will, or just purpose driven, because what I was seeing, I grew up and I went to school. I actually thought I was going to be a CPA. And I was taking French classes, and I had to take some, elective class. And so I picked Accounting 101 because I'm sure it was at the top of the list. And it clicked. Things in my brain was like, oh, there's formulas and everything balances, and it has, you can figure out where the error is by looking at, in the reconciliation of it all. And there was these great formulas. And so my analytical side of my brain, I felt, was fueled, right? And then with French, and I had been, tested into the 3rd year French class because I had so much French in high school. And I'm sure that was where my creative juices were flowing, right? And so when I took the accounting class, I was like, oh, well, who doesn't need a French speaking CPA, right? And so I went down the CPA road. I worked and interned for a CPA firm during tax season. And honestly, I was probably very motivated to not just sit behind a desk and a computer and, staple tax returns together. So I ended up working for a bank. It was actually the bank that was in the same lobby of the tall building that I was interning through. And the banking world was fascinating because, if you can't tell, I'm kind of an extrovert, and I love talking to people. And I was stuck in these cubicles upstairs on the 15th floor stapling returns. And I turned in my application, and within 3 to 4 days, I had an interview and a job. And so I went into the banking world, kind of forgetting about the CPA world, because it just it was much more solution based. People came in, they had a bounce check. How did I do this? And I'd help them through it. And I could reverse the fee. You had, the authority to make it right for the client. And I always felt that culture really helped propel me into being a financial advisor. And once I got into licensing and investments and insurances and estate planning and everything that goes into, the world of financial planning, it clicked. Everything everything was just perfect for me. And I saw a huge gap. I saw that the industry, financial industry as a whole, and I'm being very general blanket here, but they pretty much ignore women and they ignore people of color because we are deemed not making enough money, right? We make less than male counterparts, or we're just not, we don't have $250,000 sitting in our checking account because they judge us. They look at us, how we're dressed. They judge us based on the appearance or the cover of us, and then they kind of dismiss us. So they might answer a few courteous questions, but nobody's actually out hunting you down, so to speak, right? And I just felt it just made me sick. It made me sick inside to see that, how dare they, or, the big they, how dare they ignore and dismiss people because of how they look or where they live in the city or whatever. And so I just felt like there is a huge gap, and job security, because there's a lot of women. And guess what? We are the biggest purchasing power on the planet. And their statistics are showing, even through COVID and the pandemic, that women are actually starting to outpace income compared to their spouses. And we're actually buyers, like by 52%, we're buyers of big ticketed items all by ourselves. So I think one thing is women are good stewards of money. We actually take care of we're born nurturers. We're born to take care of our families and our, maybe extended families. And then if we deem that we have enough money and maybe even a little surplus, we look to where can we put our money to good? Where can we give to the charities that we care about? Where can we help our community? So we're big volunteers. And so all these things just don't match up. And that's why I think coming up with my own financial firm, I was kind of always just disappointed with the 8 o'clock sales meetings on Monday, because all it was a bunch of guys showing another bunch of guys of how to sell life insurance for the day, and I couldn't fathom working with a client and not wanting to help them from wherever they're at, from the point of view of I get a lot of people going, I just don't know enough. I really am kind of bad at this. And I don't know what I'm doing. If I have extra money, where should it go? How should I invest it? So all these questions just lead to education and knowledge. And that's what I really feel that my firm is most noted for, is the financial literacy and working at people's pace and the way they digest the information and how it can fit into their lives. Because as I was saying before, we're really not taught a lot about money. We're really poorly educated as a first world country. And in fact, there was a stat that came out recently, and it was I think it was US World News and Money. And out of all the countries in the planet, US ranked 13th on the list. And the 12th one was Botswana. They are better at managing and educating their people about money. And so again, there's a huge gap. I'm here to help people on the day-to-day stuff just as much as I'm helping them build out their legacy and future planning for their heirs and their beneficiaries.
Oh, so important, Lisa.
So financial girlfriend, right? It's all about the financial resources, the education, the approachability, the accessibility. I want to lower those barriers. Having people think, oh, I can't afford a financial advisor. I don't have enough money. How can I work this out? And so I really want to just drop that and have a culture of just no shame, no judgment. Let's just dig in, and I'll roll my sleeves up. And I've been saying lately, just don't do money alone. If you don't like it, find somebody who can help you out. And the financial girlfriend is the person who is trained to look at your picture and figure out what you want to do. It's self-identifying. I love it when clients will say that we've worked for a couple of sessions together, and they'll go, you know what? You talked about that thing. What's that thing? And we'll talk about what they're looking for and what the gaps are and how they can refine and improve, even just a few tweaks. Sometimes we're finding $200 to $300 extra a month. And it's not like don't have a mocha or don't go to the, dine out next week. It's in the fixed reoccurring bills. And most of it comes out of taxes, how we pay our taxes as Americans. How come there's so many commercials? I know I'm just going on and on, but how come there's so many commercials at tax time that says we can get you billions and billions of dollars back? It's because Americans, for fear of having a huge tax bill, will pay taxes forward and then wait for their $5,000 refund instead of knowing what those numbers should look like for them and having an estimate and then getting more cash in your paycheck so that you can do more with your money. All the goals and targets and dreams that you want to do, have intention and more purpose with your life.
So good. I have so many questions that I've written down here, but so many things I want to touch on. But I absolutely love what you're doing because I 100% agree with you that there's such a gap in the industry for, like you said, women and minorities.
Nobody wants to feel sold to, and that's what I think is it's the push of the product, it's the sale, instead of like what's right for you today, so that if we tweak a few dollars here, maybe pay down some debt faster, and now you have a couple $100 extra from that, and you can now start putting it towards your kids' college or towards, whatever your goals are. We want to match your dollars, and you want to tell your money where to go.
Yes. When you started talking about like investments, estate planning, insurance, like I felt in my body this automatic reaction to go like, because it's all this stuff, like you said, we don't understand. And I thought that it was really interesting because actually at the beginning of this year, I started getting interested in like investing and in cryptocurrency. So I just started researching, looking into it. And I found myself thinking the same thing. There's such a lack of women in this area and women educators. And it was so interesting to me.
There's only 16% that are women advisors in the United States. 16%. And it's formidable for a woman to want to be a financial advisor because it is commission work. And so that's the other kind of problematic systems that are created within this industry. And so I just, there's so many, I mean, we could dig into all kinds of aspects of this.
Yes. So would you say that women invest and spend their money differently than men? I'm sure. Yeah.
They use their heart and they use their judge, I give everyone credit, everyone, not just women, but critical thinking skills, right? I'll say you've adulted your way to this point, as long as you're not living in your car, because that takes a whole nother set of, tools and ways to help, but, and resources. But, as long as you are earning income, and again, it doesn't matter to me and to those that I'm training to be financial girlfriends, does not matter if it's $1,000 a month or it's, or it's $10,000 a month or $100,000 a month or whatever it is. It's that I don't see a difference between those that are just maybe starting their businesses and still kind of just barely getting by, but they know that, it'll hit or they'll be able to sell more product. To those that work at major company, here in Portland, we have Nike and Intel and all these big companies. And I work with some of the executives out there, and they make $500,000 a year, and they do exactly what my, $700,000 or $72,000 couple might do. It's like they have credit card debt, and it doesn't get paid off every month, and they throw $2,000-$3,000 at these payments, and it just never quite goes down. And they're in the same cycles because it's the same mindset and the same education or lack of that gets people in the same boat.
I'm so glad you brought that up. I'm thinking early on in my marriage, me and my husband, we started out, like you said, we very much lacked financial literacy, but, we started out, on an income of like 40 to 50,000 when we first got married. And as we progressed through the years to like a 6-figure income, we still found ourselves living paycheck to paycheck. And it was so interesting to see that progression and, to learn along the way. And we've filed bankruptcy and we've, educated ourselves. And now I find myself in the position, I hear my children in the background, sorry, we'll edit them out. Now I find myself in the position actually of now wanting to start teaching my children, because my oldest right now is 15, and I think about the things that I was taught or was not taught in school, and seeing the way that it still is, they're still not being taught a lot about it, and thinking, God, what skills do they need to be equipped? Like, what do I even need to teach them? Because sometimes I feel like I don't even still know everything.
Well, it's funny because I've been journaling a lot, and I feel that there's just as part of me, growing up. I grew up kind of, same thing. My parents were very, modest incomes, and we kind of, was a family of four. My dad worked, my mom worked part-time sometimes when they needed that extra bump in cash, and maybe they knew Christmas is coming or something, and she would go work for a florist shop. But yeah, the thing is that for kids, especially, I think you're either born a saver or a spender. And savers don't want to spend and spenders don't want to save, right? So I think the thing that we have to battle sometimes is making it fun. And that's the other thing, is I don't think finances or even talking about money is fun unless, even lottery winners, they don't keep their monies in their pockets for, the average is 5 years and the money's all gone. And so all of these things lead to looking at ways to make it fun. And so I use my child, my oldest, he's 29 now, and my youngest is 20. But when he was just like 6 years old or so, and I was the mad dasher. I was working for the banking systems, and I was, picking him up and getting him from daycare and dropping him off at grandma's so I could go do a night networking meeting or something. And so I was like, well, I hated giving him, fast food through the drive-through, but I knew that I needed to get him something in his stomach. So I drove through like what we thought would be the least worst of all the drive-through foods. But it was, it's one of the little bags with a cute little toy at the bottom. And then they, are shoving down some French fries and a cheeseburger or something. And he'd rip the sack and he'd look for the toy first, right? And he'd dig in and he'd look at the toy and he goes, "Oh, what is this? This isn't a good toy." And he kind of tossed it over into the passenger front seat. And then he proceeded to eat food. And when I got him dropped off, and then I went back into the car to sit, and I picked up this thing. It was in a plastic wrapper, and I opened it up, and it was a little tiny bank, and it had 3 sections with 3 slots across the top, and you had stickers, and the stickers, said charity or spend or save, and so I just slapped them on there, put it together, and I put it in my purse. And later that night, I set it up on his dresser in his room. And he started, like he would like, "Mom, can I walk the dog and get 50 cents?" Or, he'd think of clever ways to get some change from my pocket. "Can I go wash your car?" And he hit the headlights and asked for $1, right? So he'd always want change. Like his dad would let him go do something and then give him some 4 quarters. But he was like, and what it was doing, and I think he's a natural born saver, like his mama. But he wanted to make sure he had enough coin to drop in each section. And I don't know that he was really reading what those sections were, but he just liked the fact that there was 3 holes and he could drop it into 3 separate sections. And to this day, he does that. He puts all of his paychecks actually go into his savings account as a direct deposit. Because he told me when he was first signing up for, his job, he's like, "Well, isn't that where I want all my money to be anyway, Mom? And I know how much my rent is, my car insurance, and I know how much my cell phone is. So I just move the money that I need to make sure I have enough to auto pay my bills." And he has money. He has thousands of dollars sitting in his savings. His goal is right now to buy a condo or a small house so that he can not have to pay rent anymore. So, I think that hopefully by osmosis, he's learned some things. But he and I have really great conversations because it's targeted saving. You're saving because you want to go on a trip. We'll call it Disneyland. Your bank will allow you to name the account. In day and age of technology, you can just open up 7 different accounts and you have one for each child, or one for the trip, and one for the house repair, and one for the new car that's coming up in 2 years or whatever. And I just say, let's just come up with your dream list and your goals and your wishes. And then let's just match it to where you want those dollars to go based on time. So I try to make it fun and easy, digestible.
Oh, that's what I loved what you just said there, digestible, because I'm thinking when you're saying you can open up the account for this, this, and this, and I'm like, there's so many options. But like, I think for myself, I'm like, I've never even navigated to look and see what the different options are as far as like we said, like saving and investing, because I don't understand it and it gets over.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it started simple, really. Savings account and having enough money. In fact, it's not wise to invest until you have enough money, a cushion or a plan for a cushion, of systematically putting money in every month, because emergencies, pandemics, people lose their jobs. So having, the rule of thumb is generally 3 to 6 months of living expenses sitting aside in an ATMable. Can I get my hands on the quick cash? Because plumbers are expensive over the weekend, but you got to have them if the water's rushing out. And just having the emergency funds, but I also call it opportunity funds, because if you know that you're going to go on a Christmas vacation and we're 6 months away, but something goes on sale at Costco and somebody wants a new barbecue, maybe well, yeah, if we dip into the Christmas funds, how fast can I replace it to make sure that we can get the airline tickets by September or something like that. So again, it's just a matter, most people will ask me a how question around money, and my brain won't let it go until I come up with many different ways to get there, right? It's like the minute you say how can I, all the synopses are now putting pathways together to give you ideas and give you solutions and ways to look at your money differently than you did before.
And I love that because we're not taught that. So I love that you're now teaching people to do that. Um, I love to hear either born a saver or a spender, and I'm like, I'm a spender for sure.
Yeah. Well, and you can support that. You can support yourself, and that's the other thing. People, spenders, you get yourself into some guilt or some like, oh God, I probably shouldn't, but I got it because it gives you that rush of of adrenaline, and just like you feel satisfied, really satisfied to be able to spend money. That's cool. Just make that a separate checking account, maybe with a totally different ATM card, or put a nail polish on the corner, and just earmark whatever is the right amount. Make it part of your line item budget in your fix. So, $50 every paycheck goes into my spendable account, and call it that, get to yourself. Because again, if you work hard and you do, you're paying your bills and everything's going fine, why should you feel bad about spending money that you earned, that you put aside for just that reason? Spend it down to zero and go to the outlet malls. I mean, whatever it is, but don't make it part of the evaporating money that already happens off the checking account. Make it an intentional account that has 500 bucks, and when it gets to 500 is when you get to go crazy and go buy yourself a Coach purse or whatever it is that you want to do.
These are incredible ideas that you're giving us, because I think too oftentimes, like how you say, it's just evaporating out of the checking account, because I thought there's such a period of time where I was overwhelmed by even looking at my account because, so many things were going in and out.
Yep. Yep.
Just like it was overwhelming to even look at. So I would just look once in a while, can we buy that? Okay, we have the money. And that's a terrible, terrible strategy.
Yeah, well, and then that, honestly,
But
that's pretty much what everybody does. I mean, I'm not making up anything that I'm not hearing from people telling me what they do, or like I just have an awareness. I think part of the hard part, really, the kind of the bite size, if you can take it bite size, that's the best way. But sometimes it feels like you're taking a bite and then, oh my God, how did I get myself into that? Right. And it's just, that's where the overwhelm and the anxiety shows up. And so my whole goal too is to bring it down to a place where money is a tool. If you got enough, if you're spending as much as you make, that's what most people do. And it is kind of like purses, right? It's kind of like you buy a big purse. I know it's going to be 70 pounds by the end of the week, because I'm going to be carrying everybody's sunglasses. I'm going to have my own stuff. Somebody needs, we're going to have my daughter with her combs or brushes. I mean, it's like, oh, mom, carry this, and I just have this. So I try to carry a little purse, just so it has my debit card that I'm going to spend on, and my ID and a chapstick. I just want a little tiny purse, because nobody can ask me to carry their sunglasses if I have this little tiny purse, So that's the point, is that we do that with our paychecks, right? We, like you said, you make a little bit of money and you start getting raises. And again, it's like you get a 3% raise and you go, oh, well, okay. I guess, nobody thinks like 3%, that means it's this much extra in a paycheck. That means that much extra goes to those accounts to make the savings happen faster, or pay down the debt faster and all of that. And there's tricks around, money hacks. I call them money hacks. There's money hacks around every aspect of our daily life, our money going in and money coming out. And we just, again, we're not taught that. And I'm trying to get that word out more and more. I'm we're doing a lot of workshops. I'm teaching women advisors about the My Financial Girlfriend client experience and how to exceed people's expectations so that it does become like, you want to lease a car or buy a car, I got to call my financial girlfriend. That's what I want them to think automatically, right? It's like anything around money, I want to bounce an idea off of somebody who will sit and listen and not try to sell me something, but just listen and maybe already know my money situation, so that, then we're really working with whatever buckets you've got so we can figure out your time.
I love that. So, do you have like a certain formula or like a recommended percentage that you say like goes towards savings, towards living expenses, towards fun, all those different buckets? Like,
Yeah. I don't have a set formula, but there's several books. There's one book called Profits First by Michael McCall, which I can never say his last name. Forgive me. But Profits First is really my brain, because he does have some set formulas, and sometimes it's more geared towards those that are self-employed. But his numbers aren't too off. I mean, there are good. I have a sheet that actually helps people derive, like, what are you currently paying for now? Like, what is it out of your living expenses, your utilities, all the things, the bills that always show up, how much portion of that, what percentage of that is already paying the bills, and what's left over. From what's left over, then it should just match up in, I think, dollar for dollar. If you have $300 extra every month, then maybe 100 goes here, 100 goes there, 100 goes here, just to help get things started. Maybe it's just 25. I always want people to start with a no-brainer amount, because if it's 25 in 3 different buckets, and maybe one of the bucket is actually paying down debt, then we just, we work from the numbers that feel comfortable and don't push people beyond what makes them feel out of sorts, right? So I say 3 to 6 months of living expenses should be accessible. All of that. Now, if it costs you $5,000 a month to live on and you need 15,000 just to get to 3 months, does all of that have to sitting in a savings or a money market at a bank or credit union? Maybe there's some other types of smaller investments that are fairly conservative, but generally just getting them started and doing the systematic so that it's a regular paced amount that's always going in. And that's what I say. If somebody has $500 extra a month, I would say, let's start with 25. Just maybe they don't even have a savings account. Let's just start it somewhere and get it going, and then keep checking in, because again, I think people think that there's a huge expense to get to work with a financial advisor. And I don't believe that should be true. I think that if you do the right thing and you loosen up some of those changes, eventually, the timing will work itself out, that somebody will want to set up some other types of investments or long-term type investments. Yeah.
I'm glad you brought up that belief, like you said, that some people believe that it's expensive to even to dip into that, like, market, or to start working with somebody like that. So I would love to know, what are some of the different things that you offer at My Financial Girlfriend? So do you do like one-to-one? Do you have programs? What kind of things would people be able to find?
One-to-one. Yeah, we're doing workshops right now, 90-minute workshops. The last one I did was $45 for the 90 minutes. And we call it Rock Your Finances. And it really just talked in very general terms around 4 different areas: cash flow, building assets, paying down debt, and giving yourself that protection, areas of protection. So with that in mind, mostly the education is really what I'm kind of on a big soapbox right now about. And then I'm doing 6-week master courses for women advisors or women in professional financial services. And that is a course that is about $150 for 6 weeks, and it's 2 hours every week. And we cover all aspects of their practice and their marketing and the systems that I've included in how to work with clients. But generally, it is just helping them figure out. I have a worksheet that looks like a house, and it's get your financial house in order. So this is kind of a place where we start gathering documents, and we put all of your financial accounts and statements, and we have a place for everything in its place, and we see what your financial house looks like, and if there are gaps or holes or places that are bigger than you want them to be. And it's based on feelings. It's not based on, like, I have to have this much money sitting somewhere. It's more about like what is going to work best for you, because sometimes it's one step forward and 3 steps back, right? Life happens. We have to expect that there's going to be something that comes up unexpectedly. How do we handle that kind of stuff? And that's where people, I feel the crisis of it, or I have to just get through it and survive, instead of having more proactive measures to help support the things that you want to accomplish. And that's more of my Pollyanna optimistic side. But the programs we are doing right now, especially, is for women, just to feel safe in it. And we're doing online Zoom courses. I have it on my website, or myfinancialgirlfriend.com, or Facebook is where we post a lot of our events. I'm going to have one called Rock Your Debt. And if people have credit card debt or other kind of debt, and they just want to plan around how to pay it off faster, there's calculators and things that I'll be using in that workshop to show them. And I'm posting that one for $25.
Oh, awesome.
And yes, one-on-one consultation, because I have a whole team of financial girlfriends ready to work with.
Oh, I love that. So everything, though, any upcoming workshops that you have, everything would be able to be found on your website.
Yes.
Okay. And you told us that was myfinancialgirlfriend.com.
Correct. Yep. All spelled out.
Perfect. And where else? Do you have any other social media that anybody can follow you on if they're interested in?
Yeah. So Facebook and LinkedIn and Instagram, we're posting out a lot of the workshops and things, is kind of what we're really on a roll right now for. Because I just see that, I'm being asked for it all the time. And from the consumer point of view, it's fun because, again, we talk about things that not normal. I said I'm a unicorn in this industry because we don't see a lot of financial advisors taking this time to sit down and talk to people around their debt, or put more money in their cash flow so that they eventually will have more money to put into investment. It's a big circle. I see it as a big circle of life.
Absolutely. And it's such a low cost for, to be able to educate yourself. There's at some point we have to step up and take that responsibility to educate ourselves. Otherwise, like you said, we get stuck in our cycle of, again, living paycheck to paycheck, or overspending, or always overdrafting, or, so at some point you have to take that responsibility to step up and educate yourself. So I love that you have these very low cost workshops that give you the opportunity to do just that. So
yeah,
incredible that you're doing that. I just feel like you've given us so much information. So we've brought up so many important points. I know, but there's going to be so many people listening that are going to feel much the same way as me, that are just like, oh my gosh, all that stuff she's talking about. But don't get scared. Don't get scared. Don't run away, because that's what's keeping you stuck in those cycles. Like, take the opportunity to, after you've listened to this, go look up the workshops, go follow Lisa. And as we kind of like close out, maybe you could offer us like one or two of your top money hacks that you share that they can walk away with.
Yeah. Well, usually it's that savings. Most of us just do a direct deposit to our checking, and that's where the evaporation happens. So, and it may take some logistics to set it up, but do a direct deposit to your savings, and then sweep over how much you need to pay that week's or 2 weeks worth of bills. So there's some adjustment there. The next money hack has to do directly with credit cards. Basically, there's most women tend to round up. So if you have a statement and you know that you can't pay off the balance for that credit card, say it's a $50 minimum payment, we all go, oh, I'm going to throw $100 extra at it. So it's $150, right? Well, we think in our minds and we think that the 100 is actually going in as a principal only payment. And in 2000, lobbyists from financial institutions with credit cards were able to sneak in a couple of sentences that said, instead of dividing your interest rate APR against your credit card outstanding balance by 12 months, 12 times, they were able to divide it by 365 days. So it becomes a per diem compounded interest rate against your bill. So even if it shows $50, we also know that it'll never pay off if I just keep paying $50. Like it'll take us 45 years to pay it off, right? Well, without using it over and over. So what happens is that when you pay the 150 all in one payment, then they're using the per diem against the extra as well as what the minimum was. And now your $100 might only be $56 to principal instead of to the other way around. The way to make a forced principal only payment when you want to make extra payments above the minimum is have the minimum paid on or before the due date, auto pay it or send it in on or before your due date. And then just only wait 1 or 2 days once you've seen it post, because they can only now collect the interest that's accrued until the next payment hits. So if it's only 2 days, they can only get 2 days of interest. Maybe it's only $8, and now 92 of it goes to your principal. It's a forced principal payment.
Oh my God, that's a huge tip. That's huge, Lisa. Oh gosh, thank you for that. So definitely, if you resonate with that, go and look, because like you said, they slip in that language. And I know for myself, I don't read through that stuff, to see.
Nobody really sees it. We don't even know where to look for it in our statement. And some people might be skeptical. And I said, here, let's just try it. Let's do a test for a couple months. And I know that you've paid extra in the last few months, but let's take those statements. And then when you do it every time, send me a statement and we'll do a comparison side by side and we'll see how much more it's paying down than it is going towards the interest. So that's, yeah, it's near criminal the way that they've aggregated that interest against us. And nobody talks about it. That's the other thing, is I don't hear anybody talking about it, but I've used this method for 15, 20 years. And it's people are mind blowing. That's what I do. That's what I do, is I blow people's minds.
Right.
That's all I care about, is how much can I make people feel better about their lives
Oh my gosh.
than
Well,
what
you
they do
blew
now.
my mind. I'm going to have to make sure in show notes that I put, make sure that you
Yeah.
listen all the way to the end, because Lisa is going to blow your mind.
The money hack, mind blowing money hacks. Yes. That's a couple of really juicy ones. The other ones might be, look at your insurance coverages, like your house insurance or renters or car, because whatever deductible, if you have full coverage on your car, for instance, you pay for the liability because that's usually state mandated that if you cause an accident, the other person's car gets put back together, right? But when you have a nicer car or newer car, or you owe money on your car, they're going to require that you get full coverage. Full coverage, really, the other side of it is called collision insurance. And in collision covers you. If you cause the accident, your car then gets returned back to its original status, right? Repair status. So if most people don't question it, they just say, hey, I need insurance, I'm going to drive it off the lot or whatever, right? Hey, I'm going to get new insurance, or get a new agent or something. They might shop it a little bit, but even shopping it, most people, again, average people, have either a $250 or a $500 collision deductible, which means they have to put out $250 or $500 to the car repair place, and then the rest of the bill gets paid by the insurance company, right? Well, what happens is that if you've driven for, I'm 57, so I've driven like 40 years of my life. If I had gone with a higher deductible, like $100 or $1,000, sorry, or $2,000 on a collision, then that means I would have been paying lower premiums. And I think about that. If it was even $8 a month for 40 years, that's thousands and thousands of dollars And knock on wood, I've only been in a few accidents. So the idea is that you look at your record, you look maybe if you have some teenagers that are coming up driving, get them a beater car so they don't have any collision insurance to fix it, right? I mean, the idea is that, again, just knowing what your numbers look like and awareness of how much you're going to pay out. Like I get people who will look at their insurance and go back with questions to their insurance agent. I'm not here to have them fire anybody, because I don't sell car insurance. But why wouldn't you just say, give me a higher deductible so I'm paying less in premium? And the insurance agent, again, are their commissions, so their paycheck depends on how much in premiums that person's paying. So they might talk it out of it, because like, oh, you're only going to save like $8 every 6 months. Well, even $16 for the next 40 years of my life, or 30 or whatever it is still thousands of dollars. So the idea is that you just make it right for you and your family situation to again, pinch pennies wherever you can find them. And that's another money hack that I have, is just look at your deductibles and quote them higher than you think. And maybe you wait until you can get that savings account to equal 1,000. I'm not trying to put anybody out on the hook or anything, but making sure that you're pinching those pennies. Put maybe one of your accounts is the deductible account for the car that is going to have the full coverage, So again, positioning money so that you have backup contingencies. It's squirrels putting nuts in five different trees. That's kind of my vision on this, is you just want to put all your little nuts wherever you can so that you have access to the money when or if things go awry.
I'm going to go look at all of my deductibles right now. I'm just like, as you're talking that, I'm like, it makes sense to me, how you're saying that. Because I'm like, sometimes my deductible, I think is $500. Well, we've not used it, but I actually needed to have a windshield repair done within the last couple of weeks. Well, it was cheaper for me to just pay for the windshield repair than to even pay my deductible. So,
and claim it, because then the claim shows up on your insurance and could increase your premiums as well. So
yeah.
Yeah, nope, it's totally true. House insurance, I have clients that have, they have $500,000 houses, and they have a $500 deductible if the tree falls on the roof. And while that's nice not to pay only have to pay 500, it's actually more prudent to pay. I have clients that have $10,000 deductibles, and they pay very, very little for the exact same insurance, and get, they're willing, because again, depends, do you live in a wooded area and a tree could fall on your house, or do you have a flat landscape and there's no trees anywhere, so I'm just trying to, it's just, you have to be practical. And that's the thing, is I really try to just bring it down to practical living, day to day thinking about how we just don't put that kind of thought process into our money sometimes.
No, we don't. And I think that a lot of it is, like you said, because we haven't been taught, so it gets overwhelming, and so we avoid it.
Right. Or we think, here's the other problem that I think is what's coming up, is that I'm using a professional, I'm using somebody who's a car insurance agent. Well, you have to know where their motivation is, right? And I think they're all good people. It's not, nobody's not a good person because they happen to do this. It's just that it's the industry, the money industry is forcing people to maybe just like, oh, they can handle 500, and that means I get, the $8 extra a month in premium. So and they work with 1,000 people, so they're going to have a nice paycheck. It's just the industry pays well, if I feel, because all the cities out there with the big tall buildings, all of them are normally owned by banks, insurance, and investment companies. The financial industry pays well. And if you do the right things with clients right from the get-go, they'll be, long-standing clients, and you're training them to think about their money. And it's all of our responsibility that are working with clients around money or finances. I just think it's the best thing to do, is do the right thing first.
So good. I'm so glad that you're doing this. And I'm so thankful that you came on to share with us today, because I feel like we've got so many golden nuggets in this episode. So I just can't wait for everybody to be able to hear it. So Lisa, thank you.
I get jazzed up by this.
Yes.
So thank you.
Yes. I mean, I'm even getting excited about it. And like I said, usually I tend to be like, Yeah. And I'm
Yeah.
like getting excited. I'm like, oh, I'm going to go look at all my deductibles and open up some savings accounts. And so I love that. And that's just right there, shows that you're right where you're supposed to be, teaching this, sharing with other people, giving that passion to them so that they can learn and we can, change the course of the future really for ourselves.
Yeah, I would love to be considered a catalyst in how financial literacy gets more approachable and more access to all people, no matter any walk of life. They all, everything could be so much different. And I love, like the phrase that you teach a man, you've taught an individual, but if you teach a woman, you've taught the village. And I want to be part of that village of just shared knowledge and shared information and helping people just better their lives, even just, little bits at a time.
Yes. Lisa, thank you for being on today. It has been an honor to have you here and have you sharing with us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for listening to the Self Project podcast. Make sure that you scroll down and you check out the show notes so you can connect with our awesome guests from today, and also come over and follow me on Instagram at _Christy Martin to see more of what I've got going on. Make sure that you've subscribed to the show so that you can get regular updates, and I will see you next time.